the unsolved case of the vanishing truck driver. Your support helps Tangled Logic reach more people. Even one like or sub makes a big difference. In the early hours of May 28, 1995, Devin Williams, a 28-year-old long-haul truck driver from Kansas, embarked on what was supposed to be a routine delivery from California to Kansas City. Devin was known among his peers for his punctuality, his calm demeanor, and a meticulous attention to detail, traits that made him one of the more reliable drivers at his company. But that morning, those familiar qualities would vanish alongside him. Devin's route would take him through the remote stretches of Arizona's Tonto National Forest, a region known for its winding roads, dense forests, and sudden drops. As he maneuvered his 18-wheeler through the pre-dawn darkness, headlights cutting through fog, he radioed in to report that he was on schedule, his voice calm, almost casual. Within hours, however, something inexplicable would unfold, and Devin Williams would disappear without a trace. At approximately 4:17 a.m., a passing motorist noticed a semi-truck off the shoulder of the road, its cab angled into the underbrush. The truck's hazard lights were blinking sporadically, and the engine was still running. The witness reported seeing Devin outside the vehicle, pacing frantically and looking over his shoulder as if expecting someone or something. Then, before the motorist could approach, Devin turned and vanished into the surrounding forest, leaving the truck behind. Law enforcement was called immediately, and what they found at the scene was unusual. The truck itself was intact, with minor damage from veering off the road. His personal belongings, wallet, cell phone, and logbook were still in the cab. The cargo was undisturbed. There was no sign of struggle, no skid marks suggesting a chase. It was as if Devin had evaporated into thin air. Search and rescue teams combed the area for days. Helicopters circled above, dogs traced the dense undergrowth, and volunteers scoured the trails, but Devin was nowhere to be found. His disappearance baffled authorities because there were no indications he had intentionally abandoned his truck. Nor was there evidence of foul play. Truck drivers, by nature, are resourceful. They know how to navigate wilderness, survive off limited supplies, and remain hidden if necessary. Yet Devin's disappearance did not match the behavior of someone fleeing voluntarily. His truck remained registered and insured, making it unlikely he planned to disappear permanently. Friends and family described Devin as cautious, dependable, and not prone to impulsive actions. Something, however, had altered the course of his life in those early hours, and no one could explain what. 2 weeks into the search, investigators began examining the surrounding areas for clues. They interviewed campers, hikers, and forest rangers, piecing together a timeline. One hiker reported seeing a man fitting Devin's description walking toward a rarely used service road the night of the disappearance. According to the hiker, Devin appeared disoriented, speaking to himself and clutching a small, unidentified device. Yet, when authorities searched the service road, they found nothing. It was as if Devin had walked into a place that no one could access, vanishing behind a veil of nature that refused to relinquish him. The forest, thick with mesquite and ponderosa pine, seemed almost sentient in its ability to conceal him, leaving the case increasingly frustrating for law enforcement and his loved ones. Months passed with no breakthroughs. The trucking company issued statements pleading for information, and Devin's family hired private investigators. Psychological profiles were drawn, considering the possibility that Devin experienced a breakdown, perhaps induced by stress or an undiagnosed medical condition. Yet the investigation consistently ran into dead ends. His medical history showed no tendencies toward paranoia or dissociation, and his behavior prior to the disappearance had been perfectly normal. Friends reported routine conversations the night before, nothing unusual or alarming. And still, the question lingered. Where could a healthy, rational man simply vanish in the middle of the American Southwest without leaving a single clue? Then, nearly 2 years later, a breakthrough emerged that stunned investigators. In April 1997, a hiker stumbled upon skeletal remains in a remote desert canyon, nearly 20 miles from the site of Devin's last known location. The remains were partially buried beneath a jumble of rocks and desert brush, making it clear they had been undisturbed for a long period. Dental records confirmed the identity. It was Devin Williams. Yet the discovery only deepened the mystery. There were no signs of trauma, no indications of foul play, no defensive wounds, no sign he had been attacked. The position of the remains suggested he had fallen or collapsed, but the terrain was not near any cliffs or hazardous areas. How had he ended up in this isolated location so far from his truck? Investigators combed the area for any additional clues. They found a torn piece of fabric that appeared to be from his jacket, and a fragment of what might have been a map or notes. Nothing else. No footprints, no drag marks, and no evidence of human interaction. Theories began circulating among authorities and the public. Some suggested he may have wandered off, disoriented, perhaps experiencing a sudden medical episode. Others speculated about abduction or foul play orchestrated by someone he knew. A small faction of theorists proposed something more extraordinary: that Devin had stumbled upon something in the forest, something secret, dangerous, or even supernatural, which led to his disappearance. But all of these theories remained unproven. Over the following months, the story gained national attention. Media outlets speculated endlessly, reporting details that were sometimes accurate, sometimes exaggerated. Devin's family endured relentless questioning from journalists, friends, and curious strangers. Some articles suggested he might have been involved with organized crime due to the mysterious cargo on his truck, but authorities quickly dismissed these rumors. The truck's load was mundane, consisting of industrial equipment scheduled for delivery with no evidence connecting Devin to illicit activities. Still, the void of information only fueled the imagination, turning Devin's story into a cautionary tale about vanishing without a trace. Psychics and self-proclaimed investigators joined the conversation, offering wild explanations. One psychic claimed Devin was abducted by extraterrestrial beings and placed in a pocket dimension, while another insisted that the forest itself was alive and had consumed him. Law enforcement ignored these claims, focusing on tangible leads, but the public fascination grew. The case became emblematic of a deeper fear that sometimes, even in the modern age, people could simply disappear, leaving only fragments of evidence, rumors, and endless questions. Devin's colleagues returned to their roots with unease, many recounting the eerie silence and the unnerving thought that something similar could happen to anyone. Despite continued investigation, no definitive explanation ever emerged. The remains of Devin Williams were eventually interred by his family, who struggled with the ambiguity of his final moments. Search records, witness statements, and forensic analyses filled binders, yet none solved the riddle of his disappearance. The location of the remains, isolated and seemingly inaccessible, suggested a prolonged period of wandering or disorientation, but nothing conclusive could be drawn. Psychologists studied the case, but the absence of prior mental health issues, combined with his meticulous nature, contradicted the theory of self-induced disappearance. Law enforcement eventually labeled the case as unresolved, leaving it to the realm of enduring mystery. Today, over 25 years later, the disappearance of Devin Williams remains one of the most baffling unsolved cases in American trucking history. Investigators, true crime enthusiasts, and online communities continue to debate what truly happened. Some theorists suggest that Devin discovered something illegal or dangerous in the forest, and his disappearance was a calculated elimination. Others remain convinced that an accidental yet untraceable series of events led him into a canyon, where he perished quietly, unnoticed. What makes the story chilling is not just the vanishing itself, but the silence that followed. There are no final words, no last recordings, no farewell-only questions that linger in the stillness of Arizona's desert forests. Even though you're a world away, your support would mean the world to me. Please like and subscribe to Tangled Logic.